Hi there, this video is called Live. Extreme Endgame, Boris Johnson, UK 2022. Time the moment, digital at the moment, and analog is 7:34 AM in the morning, and it is the, well, 24th of May 2022. Goodbye, Boris Johnson. Do the end of your tether.
They're on the front pages of.
Excuse my voice, I've got laryngitis.
We have a look at them.
Not coronavirus, thank
You
goodness.
can see there. How would you describe that?
Well, look, I think we, personally, find them very difficult to look at. I couldn't see my own dad, as I've mentioned on your programme previously, for 4 months during this period because he was in hospital and we thought we'd lost him at one point. I think actually, looking at this as well, the Prime Minister will be disappointed. He's, as you know, apologised for what happened. I think he's popped down there to raise a glass and say thank you to a long-term member of staff who's leaving. You know, my view is that none of this should have happened, of course.
Of course it shouldn't have done. It's not right.
Well, it's certainly a leaving event. His part in it, though, will have been fully investigated by the police. As we know, he wasn't fined for this event. And as you say, he's raising a glass and he's saying cheers and thank you to a member of staff as he left the office that day. But as I say, I don't seek to defend it because he doesn't either. And he's reformed Number 10, brought in a new office of the Prime Minister, brought in a permanent secretary to that office to look after all of the running of Number 10, which is what should have been happening all along.
Okay, I just want to look at these pictures again. There is booze flowing. There are empty bottles on the table. There's food there. There is a toast.
Oh yeah, that's a party.
In his hand.
That's a party, not an office
An
party.
Event, is it? That is a party.
Well, of course, people who will have looked into this and seen all of the evidence will have been the Metropolitan Police.
It's a party.
He looks happy.
Well,
And we're all feeling miserable back then.
The Prime Minister's red boxes,
A nasty person.
where the work is put for ministers and the Prime Minister in this case. So it looks to me like he probably was coming out of his office, carried the red box.
He doesn't care about a person like me, or the average person with underlying health.
Working with closely all the way through, and then presumably left, and the police will.
He's a selfish man.
That's why they didn't issue him a fixed penalty notice in this case.
They didn't, and that, you know, I'd love to be able to talk to the police this morning about their reasoning behind that. But the reason this matters is because Boris Johnson was asked in Parliament, wasn't he, at Prime Minister's questions, was there a party on the 13th of November? And he said no.
No.
And now we have that picture.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, how does he reconcile him saying no? That
His days are numbered.
With the
Endgame.
Well, I imagine from the Prime Minister's point of view, what happened was he was asked to go down and thank somebody who was
Last of the summer wine for Boris Johnson.
And leaves, and I imagine that's the reason why. But I don't seek to second guess the police work, the Met police work, in the same way as I don't seek to second guess or influence the work of the Durham police, who are investigating, of course, the leader of the opposition and the deputy leader of the opposition right now for alcohol at events. So that is their job to do. But also we know that with regard to your question about what he said to Parliament, that there is a privileges committee who will be looking into that, and their work is, of course, yet to come.
We kind of don't need a privileges committee report at the moment, though, do we? Because we've got this photo. We can see it for ourselves.
Aye.
And, you know, even if the Prime Minister did nothing wrong, even if the Met were right not to give him a fixed penalty notice, we now know that he walked in and saw that event, and he said there wasn't a party. I just don't understand. How can he reconcile there not being a party when we've seen him looking and standing at that party?
Well, again, I think it is probably a matter for the police, who have adjudicated this, and they've issued fines, as you know, but also for Sue Gray, whose report, as you rightly say, we await, I think, quite imminently now. And then finally the standards, or rather privileges committee. So, you know,
Right for some, innit?
In place, people will have far more access to information than us.
Socially
I rely on them
stupid,
to
man.
get to the truth of these matters. The police have already thrown enormous amounts of resources, huge amounts, a number of people, spend a lot of money on it, and you know, I do take whatever the police decide as being serious, because they will have seen all of the evidence, heard all of the accounts, and as I say, whether it's the Met Police or indeed the Durham Police, they're the ones who are in the position to judge those things.
Ministers are not allowed to mislead Parliament, are they? They're not allowed to lie to Parliament. How is that not a lie?
So I think what he would have thought at the time, I imagine the Prime Minister can answer for himself, and indeed he will when the Sugray report comes out, is that, you know, in a busy day, and the fact that I see his ministerial boxes, his work there with him, which he often carries from one room to another, in particular when he's going back to his flat to do his work, suggests to me that he was probably on his way through to do that. But again, the Prime Minister will answer for all of that. You know, as I said before, I, you know, personally not having been able to see my own dad over this period of time, taking these matters extremely seriously, and I find it frustrating.
But you're annoyed as much as we are.
We've seen the opening of a nearly £20 billion new underground line in London.
Yeah.
Line. We're the country that's leading on the response to Ukraine, according to President Zelensky, and so many other important things like the cost of living going on, and yet I have to, you know, end up, you know, discussing events of a year and a half ago. So of course I'm frustrated by it as well.
I do want to talk to you about CROSSRAIL in a moment. Absolutely, and it's a big day in London, and our viewers across the country have.
Yay, CROSSRAIL.
At a time when the Prime Minister is supposedly dealing with levelling up and dealing with transport and dealing with Ukraine, we know he was calling in Sue Gray just a couple of weeks before she publishes her report to have a little chat about what it might be including and how it might be released. How does that look?
Yeah, I don't think that's quite right. I think actually what happened was civil servants in number 10 asked for the two of them to get together, which is totally usual thing to happen, to talk about technical details.
And then said that they hadn't, and now say that they had. How does that look?
Well, certainly number 10 organised it. It wasn't either Sue Gray or the Prime Minister, which I think was the first question. And totally normal. By the way, the same thing will have happened for the interim report. That's just sort of standard practice when a government report when a report's being published. The Prime Minister, after all, commissioned Sue Gray to do this. But I mean, I think any suggestion that Sue Gray isn't entirely independent and
not suggesting that.
No. So I mean, as I say, it's totally normal practice when a report is being delivered back for the individual to come and brief on timing and those types of technical.
But this is not normal, is it? What we're seeing
No, it's not.
at the moment is far from normal.
This is most unusual.
To have a chat, but then the briefing that went on over the weekend that there hadn't been a chat, and then there had been a chat, and somebody invited somebody, and it was the other way around. This doesn't look good, does it? At a time when you should be trying, as a government, to clear things up, to offer some kind of clarity and openness and transparency, this looks like a mess. It looks like you're trying to hide stuff.
Yeah.
To you, I mean, both myself and I suspect by now your viewers are probably pretty keen to hear, you know, what we're doing to tackle cost of living, what's happening with regard to these threatened rail strikes and much else. And so, in a way, you're perpetuating it by continuing to talk about it. As I say, you couldn't have had a more transparent process than the Met Police piling in a ton of resources, a very lengthy Sue Gray report that's going to be published in full. There's actually a privileges committee, that MPs will carry out in terms of.
Go fishing, mate. Go fishing.
Questions will be coming out, through those processes. But you're right. I think the public has a strong appetite to talk about the matters which actually affect them in the here and now today, and I'm very happy to move on to discussing those whenever you're ready.
Absolutely, but I think the thing, looking at our inbox this morning, the point is that the pandemic affected all of us.
Aye.
All of us, and that's why so many people have questions about it. Let's talk about CROSSRAIL, because we've seen pictures of this gleaming new network crossing London. And it looks fantastic from the images we've seen, and yet there'll be viewers watching breakfast this morning who live in parts of the country where there is no shiny new line. In fact, where they've lost services on the trains, on the buses, and where they're going to struggle to get to work.
The north, especially Sheffield.
When they look at these pictures and think, "Oh, there you go, London's got it again."
The good news is I'm spending 5 times the amount outside of London through something called the Integrated Rail Plan. To build up rail services elsewhere.
That's with high speed too, Sheffield.
The capital, outside of the southeast. So if you're watching this and you're in Manchester, you're going to get actually 2 high speed lines. If you're in Leeds, you're going to get massive rail improvements. In fact, we're just finishing off a massive programme of improvements at Leeds Station. If you're in the Midlands, you're getting electrification of the Midlands main line. Actually, no matter where you are in the country, we're working hard to improve our railway services, and huge amounts of money, for the first time, more money being spent outside of London and the South East, in the north and elsewhere, than in London. So we've got a massive levelling up exercise going on, and you know, I'm delighted being able to cover openings and construction work elsewhere.
I'm sure you are. And in terms of these possible strikes over the summer and warnings of delays, and,
Oh dear.
issues getting food around.
There goes my holiday.
What are you going to do to make sure the trains keep running, especially with freight, to make sure that we don't run out?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I appeal to the unions. I love the railways. I know they do too. You know, this is actually very premature. There haven't even been any discussions about pay at the moment. Their call is to unfreeze pay. Pay is going to be unfrozen for rail workers. So this is not the time. This is premature. We've lost a quarter of our passengers who have yet to come back after coronavirus, people working from home and the like. We've lost a quarter of the income. And I think we have to, as a government, be fair to doctors and teachers and nurses in balancing pay and the rest of it. So, you know, the railways have been on life support, £16 billion into them to support them during
pandemic
coronavirus. That's £600 per household, whether you use the railways or not, and the vast majority of people do not. So, you know, I just ask for the unions to, you know, have a conversation about this, come to the table, be sensible. Of course, though, we will have to prioritise freight and goods and energy supplies moving around should it come to this. But I just don't think it needs to, and I think everyone needs to sit down and talk about it.
Okay, Grant Shapps, thank you very much.
If you like this video, please give me thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel on Simon Germans. May the force be with you always. Quite matter what the needs, the many outweigh in these options. Bye, everyone. I'm Simon.